how amazing do these fruits and vegetables look? This is what we want to find in the supermarket. But how do we get them? How are plants able to get them to look so good? And what challenges do plants face during their lifetime to be able to produce all our food? So a lot of our food is produced outside, where plants face insects, the environment, so temperature, humidity, rain, no rain, and that all affects how the plants produce our fruits and vegetables. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how we can utilize microorganisms to protect our plants. Plants face two different types of stress. So there's abiotic stress, which is affected by non-living factors, which can be drought, salinity, temperature. And then there's biotic stress, which is caused by living factors. So pathogens, insects, but also weeds are considered a biotic stress factor. So where do we find these microbes? Microbes are everywhere. 1 gram of soil contains billions of them. They're in the water we use to irrigate our lands. They're on the seeds. They're everywhere in every step that we do in agriculture. The microbes that we use are found everywhere. There is expeditions to the desert, to the Arctic pole, to find specific microbes that have specific characteristics. Because if these microbes can survive in the desert, they might have some characteristics that can help our plants face the increasing temperatures that we're dealing with. Something that every plant needs is food. And plants actually can live on just 20 elements. That's all they need to uphold all their biochemical processes. In this photo, we see a cabbage and a corn, which are showing some reddish-purple decoloration. That's a symptom of phosphate deficiency. What plants often do is they deplete nutrients from their older leaves, and they try to put that into their newer leaves so that at least they can continue growing. Leaf discoloration is often a sign of nutrient deficiency. In this case, it's purple, but it can also be yellow, white, and all these colors indicate which nutrient might be the cause of it. In the tomato, we see what they call blossom end rot, which is a calcium deficiency in tomatoes. So looking at what your crop is and the symptoms it's showing can help you determine what the plants are dealing with. Plants need nutrients in different amounts. So nutrients like nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, they need in lots, in big amounts. Nutrients like copper, zinc, they can use in smaller amounts. So if we look at some of these big need nutrients, like nitrogen, nitrogen is probably the most abundant nutrient which is available on Earth. It's in the soil, it's in the air, it's just not in a form that is available to plants. Plants like their nitrogen in either ammonia or ammonium, but that is not the case in which it's present. The nitrogen in the soil is bound often in organic form, and the plants are not able to take it up. And also the atmospheric nitrogen, the plants cannot deal with. So in this photo, we see rhizobium. Rhizobium is a bacteria that can form symbiotic relationships with plants from the legume family. So soybean, beans, alfalfa, clover, plants like that. What this microbe does is it can fixate nitrogen. So it can take the nitrogen, make that into ammonia, and then exchange that to the plant. It does that in these nodules that you see on the root that is displayed on the photo. In return, the plant provides carbohydrates to the microbe. Nitrogen fixation is a very, very cost-expensive step, and that is why a lot of organisms on Earth are not able to do that. So the fixation of 1 mole of nitrogen will cost the microbe 16 moles of ATP, their energy source. So you can imagine that that is a reason why not many organisms would like to do this. Something else which is very important to plants is phosphate. And a microorganism that can help with that is mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a fungus, and a fungus with their mycelium can really help expand the root system of plants. So what we see on the left is a root of a non-colonized plant, and on the right we see a root of a colonized plant. The difference is that in the right photo we see arbuscules. And arbuscules are the structures that fungi make in the roots, and through these arbuscules they can exchange compounds. So in this case the plant gets phosphate and the microbe again gets carbohydrates from the plant. The effect of this is in the bottom photo. So on the left we see untreated onion, and moving to the right we see an increased amount of mycorrhiza that was added to the plants. So we see an increase in fresh rate of the plants. Mycorrhiza works in about 90% of plants. Not only agricultural important plants, but it also works in trees, for instance. It does not work in brassicas or sugar beets, but other than that, it works in pretty much every agricultural plant. Something that is becoming an increasing problem is salinity. Here we see two fields that are clearly salinity affected. According to the FAO, 20% of soil, agricultural soil, is salinity affected. But estimations go as high as 50%. Salinity affected means that there is a high concentration of soluble salts present, which affect the osmotic balance in your field. Osmotic stress causes poor germination, less nutrient availability, decreased water availability, which all results in bad plant development. And as you can see here, in the end, your yields will be very, very limited, because if your plants are not able to grow and develop, there is nothing for you to harvest in the end. What can microbes do against salinity? As I mentioned before, microbes are discovered everywhere. So also in areas with high salt concentrations. And there you can find microbes that actually need salt to survive. Salt is more or less their food. There's also a different type of microbe, and that is a type that can adjust to a salty environment. These two different groups of microbes we can use to treat plants and help them survive these circumstances. Microbes can help restore the nutrient imbalances, help fix the osmotic stress, and in return, the plants can grow and they can have their symbiotic relationship again. If we then move on to living factors that impact plants, we look at soil pathogens. So one that we see here is Fusarium. Fusarium is found in a lot of soils, and we can control that using microorganisms. So in both photos, you see in the middle, we placed a block of Fusarium. On the left, you see that Fusarium grew on the entire agar plate. What we've done on the right is we added a bacillus. Bacillus is a bacteria, and you can see that the growth of the Fusarium is inhibited, which means that its growth is limited. You also see an inhibition zone, so there is a clear area between the Fusarium and the bacillus, indicating that the bacillus is excreting compounds that limit the growth of the Fusarium. If you apply this biological on seed, and this biological is able to colonize your root system before the Fusarium is actually at the plant, this microbe can protect your plant against the Fusarium attack. This actually is a cornfield. It's hard to see, but there are some corn plants visible. The rest is wheat, and they take the light, the nutrients, the water that the corn needs to grow and develop. There's actually a pretty cool microbe that can work against weeds as a weed control. And what it does, it works against broad-leaved plants or weeds, like dandelion, clover, thistle, and it, before the plant emerges, makes the plant white, which means it doesn't have chlorophyll in it. And if the plant doesn't have chlorophyll, it's really nice that it comes above soil, but it doesn't have any chance of survival because it won't have chlorophyll in it. That way, we don't need herbicides, and the farmer doesn't have to manually remove all the weeds, so he will be happy with that. A major thing are insects. They can eat your entire field if they want to. In this case, we just see 2 caterpillars, but you can also see that most of the leaf is already eaten. And this allium plant will not have a chance to survive if these caterpillars continue eating. In 1901, a bacillus was discovered, and in 1911 already it was found that this bacillus has very specific or interesting bioinsecticidal properties. This bacillus produces a toxin. This toxin is covered, but by the time this toxin enters the gut of caterpillars, the toxin is released. It will destroy the gut of your caterpillars, and it will destroy your caterpillars, working as a bioinsecticide. This is one way of protecting plants against insects. We can also do that by using fungi. Fungi that actually grow inside insects. You would think that insects are protected by their exoskeleton, like these grasshoppers that don't come in 2 like the caterpillars we saw on the last photo. Grasshoppers come with thousands or 10,000s, and they can destroy your field within a day. These fungi that we're talking about, their spores can actually penetrate the exoskeleton of insects. They will grow and develop inside the insect, and in the end will cover the entire insect. So on the top row, we see normal insects, and on the bottom row, we see those same insects covered in fungi. Insects don't let this happen just like that. So insects have mechanisms to fight against this. Some of them have a fever response to try and fight the infection. Some of them groom each other to clean each other, get rid of the spores before they can really attach to the insects. And some of them will leave their group in an attempt to prevent the rest of the group to get the same fungi infection. These are just some examples of what microbes can do. And every fruit and vegetable we see here will have different needs, different demands, and will engage a different symbiotic relationship with a microbe. But I am very hopeful that I've showed you that microbes are not just able to, but already are changing the world.